Good morning. It's 9:30. I'm calling the meeting to order. I'm Nancy Vandal, Chair of the NCAC Bylaws Subcommittee. Would everybody else please introduce themselves? And I have no conflict of interest.
Michael Beachley, the scribe, I have no conflicts.
Susan Schomburg, member, no conflicts.
Wyatt Angelo, member, no conflicts.
I think Bill just left the room for a second. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
I guess I'm the only Tom that's here.
You are.
Tom Perodich. How are
Thank
you
you.
all?
We're doing well.
Good.
We're doing well. Doing better than I was maybe an hour ago. So yeah.
So you're going to tell us why?
Yes.
Okay.
I will as soon as Bill gets back. So did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
I did.
Okay, all right. Did anyone have any comments for Michael? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved as presented today. Okay, my report. So where is Bill? It's been a relatively quiet week. I think Tom won. Tom Stipe is not going to be able to join us today. So some medical issues. So so we're not going to let me just go in and review the agenda real fast. First, there he is. Hi, Bill. Got the important thing like coffee. And you're muted. But no need for headphones, so. Well, still not hearing you, Bill. I think you might show that you're not muted, but your microphone doesn't seem to be working. I may have spoken too soon about the headphones.
Is the headphone plugged in maybe? But just
Well, he's not. Oh, maybe if your headphones are plugged in, then that'll keep your speaker from working, but he wouldn't be able to hear then either. And you can hear okay, right, Bill? Okay. Yeah, I can't hear you.
He's going to go run and get his grandson.
Or his headphone. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and get to the agenda here.
You know that trope about our grandchildren knowing how to fix our cell phones and everything? That is so true.
Yes, it is.
It really is.
Okay. So the agenda, you have the link to the meeting documents already. I'm sure you've seen those. For those who haven't, I added some things last night. So we have my report. Sarah's going to join us a little bit later, but she's told me to go ahead and give her report. And then I have a couple of sets of comments, mainly one to go through. That are comments from members. And then we have our document review and approval and a vote to refer the bylaws to the NCAC membership for adoption. And then planning for that meeting. I've got some information on how that meeting will go. And I think we're not going to have anything for the policies and procedures. We'll talk briefly about that. But well, we'll get to that in the agenda item. And then actions, item summary and public comment. So Tom Perodich, since it's not very many people, please feel free to comment as you feel you would like to. Okay, any questions or adjustments to the agenda? Okay, Bill, are you able to talk? Still plugging in, I think. I heard, can you?
Oh, no.
Hey, are you able to testing 1, 2, 3, Bill? Nope. Huh.
Use the phone.
Or log in again.
Yeah, why don't you go out and go back in? See if that'll help. Because we can't hear you at all. You're muted too. but you weren't, so, okay. I'll wait for him to come back. How's the weather in Nescoin?
You know, it's quite pretty today. Well, pretty by, I mean, no drizzle, no rain. And I can see the sun attempting to come through the clouds. So, yeah, it actually looks like a good day. I haven't taken a walk yet, though.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Welcome, Lori Kovac. We're waiting on Bill Miller to
Thank you.
get in. He's having some technical difficulties, so we're just holding off. Lori, were you able to get into the meeting file and see the documents?
Honestly, I just signed in, so I have not looked at. And overall, I'm very supportive of what you guys have been doing. So I'm observing, but I doubt that I'm going to have huge changes or input.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mostly, I'm just supportive here.
Thank
Mhm.
you. There's a link where you signed in. There's a link for documents if you do want to look, but we're going to do screen sharing, so you'll be able to see them that way too. Well, Bill. There he is.
Oh, there.
Okay, your muting's off and we can't see you at the moment. But you can talk. We can see if we can hear you. Maybe you are. So Bill, I don't know if you can turn on your there you are.
Yeah.
There's your camera. You gonna try talking? Can't hear you. Nope, nope, can't hear you. Can you hear us? Okay. You could stay on here and also call in with your phone. So you could talk to us through your phone, but you can see what we're sharing with your screen. So do you want to try that? When you got your Zoom instructions, there should also be a phone interface. Or you could text us through the chat. Do you want to text us through the chat? Okay, let me just ask you, do you have any conflicts to report? You can just nod. Okay, that sounds good. I see that if you have a comment, you'll type it. Susan, would you just monitor the chat so I...
Sure, yeah,
you.
no worries.
Thank you. All right, so my report and Sarah's report. We submitted, I believe, you know, the packet to the county on a week ago Tuesday. And Sarah has reported that it's not quite back yet for with approval, but we talked this morning and it's just one hang up at the moment regarding the check system that she thinks is pretty minor. So we can go ahead today and report that with a caveat, and she's meeting with the council this afternoon. So she will hopefully actually get this resolved then, but if not, she feels fine with us going ahead and continuing to have the May 11th meeting, which I was a little concerned about last night after she and I had done some texting back and forth that there might have been more major problems, but there's not. So everything else apparently looks good. So if necessary, we can do an amendment at the May 11th meeting if there is anything from council that needs to be adjusted on that one point. But other than that, it should be, he's apparently, she said, please tell the committee how impressed the council is with the packet, with everything that was presented, the writing, the organization. He likes everything about it. That was his one little remaining glitch. So I think her legwork has really paid off over the last several months, and we really appreciate her efforts. So she's going to be on a little bit later to talk with us, but overall quite good. She's also passed the packet on to Commissioner Olson and reports that he's very impressed as well. The And then I had sent it out to some of our regulars individually to let them know about it before the general email blast went out. And then Jeff sent it out a couple of days later with to the membership. So at this point, I think I'll just move on to the comments from the bylaws discussion. And I've gotten one that I sent each of you individually of the members. Oh, Tom, you have, can I explain the one remaining glitch? Yes, sorry. I was not going to discuss it, so I will. So in the current bylaws, there's a requirement under the treasurer position on Article 4 officers that checks must be signed by 2 people.
Mhm.
And when I went over the treasurer things with Chris Silkowski, he said, what do you mean checks? We don't use checks. We don't have a bank account. And so we had a discussion about that with the officers that that because they apparently the funds that they have are so low, it's under $2,000 a year, and a lot of it's just reimbursement from the county. They've been using debit cards, and they'll do a charge and then get a reimbursement from the county. So when we talked with Sarah about this, she said she would check with council, and in the meantime, we just decided with her support that we would just remove that line and not put anything else in about how that's handled. And then in the policies and procedures that we would put more in after we have a chance to figure out what would belong there, but just not have anything in the bylaws about that. So apparently he's the council's kind of still thinking about what to do about that. So that's what the glitch is. Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask
Thanks
a
for
question?
asking.
Can I ask
Uh-huh.
a question about that? Just
Of
follow
course.
up. I'm surprised to hear that, number one. Secondly, if people are given the ability to make donations from the NCAC website, to fund or donate money, where's that money going to? A debit card?
Yeah, the whole thing is so far, that discussion came up about whether the NCAC should even be accepting donations and how they would be used and that kind of thing. So we had talked, I think Sarah was going to be talking with the county also about, could there be something where the county could actually hold money for the NCAC, and I think she'd come back and said no. So we can ask her when she comes back to fill us in a little bit more about what she's thinking there. But
I know historically, like in the 1970s, NCAC, the equivalent of it was under the umbrella of the NCA.
mhm.
And they do have a checking account, so maybe that was something that never got resolved when they split. Because I would think that a debit card would have to be in someone's name.
Yes.
Or an entity name, so whose name is it in?
Right. So I think they're valid concerns, and something should be done on this. So question is going to be whether it's going to need to be in the bylaws or whether it can be put in the policies and procedures.
It sounds like a policies and procedures issue.
Yeah. And Bill Miller is saying, does spending still BD deny the expense? I'm not quite sure what you meant, Bill. Sorry. And I know this is frustrating for you. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so any other questions on the bylaws submission themselves? Okay, and I hear you, Michael. I agree. I think it could be done under policies and procedures. So we did get an email from Guy Sievert, which I followed up on and discussed with him. So let me put that up on the screen. Why is it little? Can people see it?
Not yet.
You can't see it.
I
Oh,
can.
you can. Because I've got it as a
There it
little
is.
tiny.
There it is. Now we got
You,
it.
you
Yep.
can see it.
Okay,
Okay.
yep. Mhm.
Well, unfortunately, I can't. So let me see. It's a little tiny thing. I'm going to stop share and try again. Sometimes share is weird. Oh, it did it again. All right, well,
You can,
so you all can see it though,
we can
right?
see it, but you can make it larger.
Well, I would like to. Oh, you can't, does it not fill up the screen?
It just, there it goes. Now it's good.
Oh, you can see it now. Okay, good, good. I just didn't have it in front, I guess. So, Guy and I had a really good conversation about it, but I wanted to share it because particularly in item 2, something came out of it that I think is worth discussing, maybe not from the bylaws committee, but the board could talk about it. So he'd like to see a definition of citizen as used in the document, and that definition be inclusive of all who live, work, or own property here. So small c, if you will. And he was suggesting when we talked that we put that under the definitions section. So at this point, I think it's probably too late because we've submitted to council. When Sarah comes on, I'll ask her if we could do that. But I'm thinking what I told him is I thought we could talk about doing that in the next year. We'll definitely be having some bylaws amendments, and that might be something we do there. I said that we did have that discussion when we were handling, when we were doing Article 3 membership and looking at member definition, and that was all included under member. And I recall that we did have some discussion about whether we include citizen, and that there was some concern that citizen implied voting rights, and that might further be a concern about people needing to actually be able to vote in the community. And so we just included the word member, and he was fine with that. And then we talked about quite a bit about bylaws versus task forces, excuse me, subcommittees versus task forces. And he understood once we went through it all, what the differences were. But one of the things that came out of it, and he supported it, but one of the things that came out of it was he does apparently a lot of checking of different entities out there, the water board, permit requests. He went through a whole bunch of things that he just does on his own. And he said, like, for example, in the golf course, there was something recently where they were proposing doing something that could affect the creek. And he saw that because he's on the, I think he's on the water board. Anyway, he sent them a letter saying it was out of order, that they needed to comply with regulations. And they wrote it back and said, oh, okay, thank you for letting us know, we'll do that. He said it was all handled, but it's really kind of one of our key NCAC areas, and that perhaps we should think of having a task force or even a subcommittee that could be ad hoc or standing, of people that could just be assigned to look at these different areas and report. Because he said, I'm not going to be around forever doing this kind of thing. And I thought that, and he said, and then report back, to the NCAC or the board or whatever, with so that it's a little more formal on what the NCAC might want to look at and comment on. So I thought that was a really neat idea. So I don't know. It's, again, I don't know that it falls into the realm of our committee, although we did suggest the outreach task force as a way to handle nominations and member outreach. So, but something to think about perhaps for next year. I think I see something in the chat.
Yeah, Bill asked, does spending still require the executive board approval after, oh gosh, what does it say?
No.
After the fact, could a good faith expense be denied?
It's usually required ahead of time. And then again, after the bylaws state that the expenses need to be reported to the membership at each meeting. And that's kind of a retroactive thing. But yeah, the executive board does need to approve. But typically what it is, my understanding is on expenses is that they have an annual Zoom license. They have an annual website license. They have, it's all pretty much around technology is the main issue for expenses. So they're pretty well known. And Chris does report that out at the board meetings and at the general meetings. So anyway, kind of a neat idea that we might want to talk about with the executive board and tackle for next year, but not for this year. Oh, and Bill, sorry. I meant, can the membership deny even if approved by the board? Technically they could. Technically they could, I think. It would be unusual. It would be unusual to do that. But technically, yes. And then finally, so the last thing he kind of commented when we talked that it was he had just listened to the Supreme Court arguments and so he was thinking of all these different options, but basically we had a discussion about parliamentary procedure and how voting is done, and he was satisfied. So that was Guy's comments. So, but I wanted to share that with you. Are there any comments on Guy's comments anyone would like to talk about? So Bill is saying, oh, go ahead, Susan.
Let's see, he's got, as far as the new standing committee, seems like the NCAC would be on a mission to look for problems even if no citizen had complained.
Right, so it would be to go out and see if there's anything that would be worth bringing to the NCAC, like this water situation at the golf course was one example, but also there could be something in the watershed. There could be there could be other, and that is one of the purposes of this NCAC is to make recommendations to the county and also to the membership if there's an issue. Anyway, we'll talk about whether we want to tackle that, should we be elected next year. Any other comments? Okay.
I do have one on citizen. I know they say live, work, or own property. What about owning businesses?
Right. That would be part of it too.
Hmm. So
basically, what we have is as a definition of member would fall under citizenship or citizens. So I don't know that we need to. It's just he said it's in our name, so maybe it should be defined. Was kind of what he was saying.
I know that we had, I raised the hesitation because I know that there are people who own property in Nesco who are Canadian, and we were going by the legal definition of citizen, which implies that you live in the United States or have US citizenship.
Yeah. I see somebody put a thumbs up, but I couldn't tell who it was. Okay. Okay, so that's that. Otherwise, we haven't received any other comments except the letter we got from Roger that we talked about last time. And I had responded extensively to Roger, and I think I'd also sent him an early copy of the bylaws and received a thank you back. So the bylaws document review and approval, based on what Sarah's saying, we should just go ahead and submit the packet that we submitted to county council, to the membership, with a slight change to the cover letter, addressing it to the membership as opposed to county council. Does anyone have any other thoughts about that? And Tom and Lori, please feel free to comment, because this is kind of a, and then have a transition statement a little more formally about some of the issues that we did put in the cover letter also. Some of the transition, there isn't too much that's transition. One would be obviously the officer election has to be done in June this year. And because even though the new bylaws specify April in future years, April has passed. So that's a transition of the new bylaws. So are there any comments about going ahead and just submitting the same packet and with a different cover letter? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I would so move, Nancy.
Okay. And thanks, Lori, for your comment. So it's been moved and
seconded. Yep.
Thank you, Michael, to go ahead and submit the same bylaws packet with a slightly changed cover letter to the membership for approval for the May 11th meeting, adoption meeting. Any discussion?
Hey, Nancy,
Hi, Tom.
great job. I finally got around to reading it. I appreciate the fact that you sent it to me last week, but it took me a while to get to it because of other things. And what's surprising when you actually read the bylaws is that how short they are.
Yes, after all that work.
Given all the work you put into it. The only objection that I have, which as I've said before, I'm most likely conceding, is I'm reminded of the movie The Graduate, where Benjamin's being thrown a party by his parents, and a guy comes, one of his father's business associates comes up to him and says, just one word, and the word is plastics. My one word, which might be three to make it clear, is two, not four, which I think you all understand. But this is a compromise document, and you've done an excellent job. And sometimes somebody said you can't always get what you want, but you can get what you need. And I think this is far better than what we had. So
Thank you. Appreciate that.
that's my comment. Unless there's a rebellion and I will not be the one to initiate it or to suggest it to anyone about two rather than four. I think that this should be adopted. So, in any
Thank you. So I'm going to clarify because I could see Bill and now Bill's texted. Yeah, two members limit versus 4 members limit is what Tom is talking about.
I thought, since I've only brought it up maybe 500 times.
For property voting.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be a member. Yeah, to be a voting member.
Anyway.
So we hear you, and basically, you know, what we heard was from Sarah, the county council, that he would go to 4 as a limit, that was a big compromise for him. So we're getting compromises on both directions. So
I am a political scientist. I understand politics.
thank you.
I understand who the ultimate decision maker
Right.
is.
Right.
Anyway, thank
That
you.
will all. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you all for your service, really. I mean, it's just been an extraordinary demonstration of volunteer work. I mean, it's the time you all have put into this has been extraordinary. And I know this is something I've said 500 times too, but now that you're close to the end, I want to say it again. Just an excellent job.
Well, thank you. We never get tired of hearing it, I'll tell you. And so thank you. And thank you for taking the time to come at pretty much every meeting, and feedback session. So thank you. And Lori, thank you for attending as well. I think the document is so much richer because of the input that we've gotten from the community. And so we really, really appreciate that. I'm going to just adjust the motion slightly before we take a vote, that it would also potentially include an amendment later on, since we won't be meeting before the May 11th meeting. Could we, what I would do is reach out to each of you individually and ask for your concurrence on an amendment that would come back from county regarding this check issue, the signature issue on checks. So with that caveat, is there any further discussion?
I think that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I just I'm just wondering again whether checks and who signs and so on and so forth should even be in the bylaws. It's
Right.
really, it's more of you know, P&P thing.
I think so. I've seen it in bylaws in the past, but with others, but I agree. Susan?
Well, so have I. But you know, the thing is that protocol can be changed and ought to be able to be changed easily.
Right. Right.
Meeting to meeting or year to year or whatever. And if it goes in the bylaws, then you've got to go through all of this rigmarole
Right.
of bylaws committee and so on and so forth. So it's easy.
And we might be able to have some other kind of phrasing of money management or something that's a
Yeah,
little more
sure.
nebulous in there as a replacement.
Yeah.
Susan?
I'll just add that under current anti-terrorism requirements by the federal government, I don't even think we can get a checking account.
They said that they had trouble that it was very difficult to do, particularly with the lack of funds. You know, you have to have some minimum amount and that kind of thing.
Well, we don't have any legal standing either.
Right. Susan?
Yeah, I'm still puzzled and confused by the fact that we don't have an account because Chris Silkowski gives reports about how much is in the account. So he references an account. So I think that we need to encourage the executive board to have him be transparent on that because I find it misleading. I know during COVID, I personally asked during one of the Zoom calls where we had our checking account. And it was never answered in the call, and I figured it had just been glossed over. But now hearing this I'm not suggesting anything strange is going on, but I think that we just need to be transparent, especially the treasurer, he's a CPA.
Yeah, no, I was a little surprised myself. So when we got into this, so, and yeah, I don't think there's anything underhanded at all. He was like, it was like he just hadn't really seen the bylaws, and he said, "Oh, what do you mean 2 checks, signatures on checks? We don't have a bank account." So, anyway,
Because
so
usually with debit cards, they have to be linked to an account of some
yeah,
sort.
yeah, yes, it might be his personal one. I don't really know. So, okay, so all in favor of the motion to submit the existing packet with a slight change in the cover letter and a possible future amendment regarding check handling or money management, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm not staring. So, regarding the meeting on May 11th, I went through last night finally, but I went through Robert's Rules of Order and I went through the document that I'd downloaded from a Toastmasters group down in Southern California. And it turned out they had done a much better job of writing everything up. I'd written one, but on how bylaws revisions are handled. And revisions, ours is a bylaws revision as opposed to a set of amendments. We're redoing the entire bylaws. So I'm going to, I have it in the meeting folder if anyone wants to look themselves, but I'm going to go ahead and share that screen. And it's not, okay, let me look for it. I think maybe I'm getting the hang of how you have to bring it to the front. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
So basically what we have to do is it actually gives, and so does Robert's Rule. They have, the thing about Robert's Rules is it jumps among about 4 sections that you have to go back and forth to, and it intermingles revision motions versus new bylaws versus just simple amendments. So this actually handles it nicely, and I did do some editing of it just to make sure, because to include what we will be doing, which is a revision of existing bylaws. So what it means is that we have to go through step by step, and there's a procedure where the NCAC chair, so Mark, and Mark is going to meet with Michael and me on Monday, so we can go through this procedure with him. And of course, Michael will be doing a parliamentary procedure training at 9:40 on May 11th. That is that the current bylaws are assumed to not be under consideration. We're not making changes to those. We're voting on a whole new document as if they're brand new bylaws, except that we will be indicating any changes that are pertinent. So we'll be presenting, what will happen is I will be making a motion to adopt the bylaws revision. And then the chair will, NCAC chair Mark, will be having me go through article by article, and in some cases with the longer articles, section by section, presenting what the changes are. People will have already gotten the whole new bylaws, et cetera. But people will have an opportunity to amend anything in these sections. So we're going to be using more formal parliamentary procedure. Michael will be available to help people, and I can help people if they're unclear on how to phrase something, but on how to make an amendment. We're hoping they won't, because anything that's amended successfully will have to go back to county council for approval. But it's certainly an opportunity for people to have discussion. And there may be people who wake up who've never attended any of our feedback sessions and go, oh, well, what about this? And it's a chance for us to help them understand why something was written or not. But they can make a motion to amend, and there's discussion, and our bylaws committee can feel free to also comment as well in the discussion part of an amendment. And then there's a vote that's taken. An amendment takes precedence over the main motion, and there's a vote of the people present to adopt or reject the amendment. So then we go through. So if it's accepted, that becomes part of the proposal at that point, of the motion, and then we go on to the next section or the next article, and then there aren't votes taken on each one. It's only if there's an amendment made. So this article goes through a lot more detail. There are provisos in here, like we'll have provisos in terms of the transition statement is a proviso as part of the main motion of the transition statement. But basically, that's the procedure. And then at the end, then there's a vote to adopt, on either the bylaws as revision as proposed or the bylaws revision as amended, depending on if there are any successful amendments. So
Nancy,
Michael, would
just
you
a
like
question
to?
for you?
Uh-huh.
One of the things that I've been just wrestling with recently, it strikes me, and this is kind of the nightmare of attorneys, but seems to me that the motion at the end needs to do two things. The first of which is to revoke the previous bylaws, as well as adopt the set as amended at the meeting. So there's no question about the fact that the previous bylaws no longer exist and are no longer applicable.
Well, that's an interesting comment, Wyatt. It's not part of the Roberts rules, and it seems a little surprising because when you say it, it makes sense. But if the bylaws are voted down, the motion is voted down completely, then the original bylaws stand.
Right.
That's the default. But you're saying in the main motion, it should include and to
a revocation, just like a will.
to avoid, and Robert's rule doesn't include that. They're very specific that the revision is to replace the existing bylaws. But when we say that, I think it probably wouldn't hurt
No.
to say that.
Yeah,
So-
I have no problem with that, Wyatt. That's probably a good idea because there's probably somebody in the audience who is thinking about that. And so, yeah, we can always just toss that in. That's no big deal.
Yeah, good point. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. That makes logical sense to me.
Okay, I see something in the chat.
You were going to ask me a question.
Tom Pease.
Yes, I was going to ask you if you had something to add, Michael, to the process that I just.
Nancy Bill put something in the chat.
Okay.
Doesn't replace the existing bylaws take care of that, is his question.
Yes.
Yes.
It does, but I think it's just it wouldn't hurt. I think Tom Terhadich is saying Wyatt's idea is a good one. So, Bill, do you have an objection to our just adding Wyatt's comment? We can do that as part of the motion, that we would be. Wyatt, why don't you send me the term you used? Because you had a specific lawyerly term for retiring the bylaws. I guess we could just say replacing the existing bylaws with this bylaws revision or something like that. Would that work? Wyatt?
Yeah,
Okay.
revoke and replace.
Revoke and replace. All right. I don't have a pen.
Such a
Revoke and
strong
replace.
word, revoke.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Michael, I was going to ask you as our resident parliamentarian if you had any additional comments or concerns
Not
about what
yet,
I just went through. Okay.
not yet. But you're going to send this document to us, or is it online?
It's in the file right now.
Okay, what's its title? Revising, is that it?
It's the title that I named it is by Robert's Rules of Order,
Robert's Rules,
Bylaws
bylaws
Adoption
okay, all right.
Process.
So yeah, I'll want to read it this weekend, and on Monday morning when we gather, then I may have something. I don't know.
Sounds good. Monday afternoon. Yeah, great.
Bill put something in the chat just now. He said, seems like repeal is better than revoke.
Actually, I liked repeal better.
Okay. Thank you, both of you. All right.
Talk about the weeds.
Yeah, we're good. I'm happy. So that's all I had for the meeting, but basically I just want to invite any of you to comment in any discussion if there's any amendments. At this point, I haven't heard anything from anybody saying that they have concerns. I've gotten thank yous back from Roger and Hillary and Tom. So anyway, I think hopefully it's going to go smoothly, and hopefully, I mean, we should have a quorum right now. The existing quorum's only 8, so I think between us and the officers, we should have a quorum, and I'm sure we'll have some others there too. So I think that's it. So I'm going to stop sharing this. So moving on to policies and procedures discussion. Did any of you have a chance to send any of your ideas to Tom Sipe for the
Not
document?
yet.
Okay.
Nope.
I did not either. So,
I didn't even think
so
about it. Yeah.
I thought about it, but I have a partial document, but I wanted to send something a little more complete. So let's work on that, because hopefully at our next meeting in 2 weeks, we will have bylaws adopted, and we can just talk about policies and procedures. And at this point, just send, if you wish. I think if you want to wait, I can go ahead and do a draft and send that out to each of you, and you can add to it or comment on it, and then we'll have a list to talk about. And if we have time, maybe we can actually go through 2 or 3 of the policies and procedures issues, because I'd like to, at the June meeting, the general meeting, which looks like it's going to be on June 22nd. The board did not want to actually set a date, but they're going to be moving the meeting to either June 22nd or June 29th, a Saturday, because 3 of them cannot make the regularly scheduled meeting. And they can't move it yet because we don't have the new bylaws adopted that allows them to move it. So they will be deciding that at their next executive board meeting. But it looks
Nancy,
like June 22nd.
wasn't Tom making a running list of policies and procedures, subject matters that
Yes,
we were to deal with? And is that posted somewhere?
it is. It is. It's under policies and procedures on the, it's a main tab on the bylaws library. So I can put that in the chat right now if you'd like.
Yeah.
So I'm putting that in the chat. It hasn't been updated for some time, so it's very basic right now.
Okay.
Okay, so it's in the chat. Anyway, hopefully in the next couple of meetings before the June 22nd meeting, we can have something put together that we could get approved at the June meeting, and basically low hanging fruit. And then we had agreed at our last meeting that we would take the summer off, and I'm thinking that means July, August. if you're planning on applying and you haven't yet for the committee, please do so. That we will be, the election for the subcommittee will be at the June meeting, which will be the 22nd also. So that's all I have. Are there any other comments from members or guests? We're having a very short meeting today. Bill, you should appreciate that.
I do.
Nope.
No comments.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for everything. I just felt so proud submitting that document. We have done, and I don't know if you guys went down and looked at the red line version that I ended up doing manually. It took a few hours, let's put it that way. But it really shows, at first I was kind of going, why are we having to do this? The county required it, but it ended up showing all the work that went into it. It was actually, I think, a good exercise. But anyway, I think the result is something for us to be proud of, and hopefully it will end up being useful for the NCAC, and hopefully through the process we've brought people together a little bit. I think the conversations have been really positive. So I want to thank you all for all your work on this. It's been quite the year, and fingers crossed on May 11th. So
There are 2 comments in the chat,
okay.
one from Lori Kovac and one from Bill.
Lori, no comments from me. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lori, so much. And Bill, thanks all your tech challenged member. Well, thanks for hanging in there, Bill. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, you guys have a great week and a half until May 11th. And thanks, and meeting adjourned.
And I'll see you Monday morning.
Yes, Monday afternoon.
Excuse me, and that we're gonna try for.
We're going to Zoom.
1:30. We're gonna try for 1:30.
We're gonna try. I should be back from the appointment by then.
Will be
So I'll
great.
set up a Zoom link and send it out to you and
Yeah.
Mark.
All right, good. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.